The energy you bring, because I'm not the hype guy. Though I work in,
It's Facebook Live, man. It's
it is,
live.
it is live.
I
It is
mean,
live. Is
come
it?
on.
Yes, it is live. It feels live.
I mean, no, it doesn't, but it
No,
is.
it doesn't feel live. It feels like I'm talking to you like I've thought for. I spent hours and hours on a screen talking to you in my life, so it feels
Yeah,
like that.
that's okay. That's okay. It's
Should I share
live.
my deepest, darkest secrets again, or is that only
Um,
for our one-on-one time?
yeah, how's your week been? Let's go there.
Week has been good. Spent time with the in-laws. So that's where I was last Facebook Live. I was huddled in a corner in Solving, trying to not bother people.
Solving. That's right. I
So
forgot. Solving.
so we got through that. But yeah, had a great grow group last week. That was awesome. So did that also from Solving. And yeah, the week's been good. I got the dog next to me, so let me do a pre-warning. If you see me mute or you hear the barks, the mailman's there.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, no cat in sight, but if you see me go off screen, he attacked my jugular because that's
Sure, it's more of a permanent issue than it is a
yeah, well,
temporary
it's a
annoyance.
predator. It's the prey. It's that world. But yeah, man, good. Well, solving. So what is the go-to food there? Is it smorgasbords?
It's very Danish and Dutch, so do that
Cookies.
math.
Cookies.
Yeah, but the famous restaurant there from is the Hitching Post. It's meat, a lot of meat. You can smell meat, people on the grill, tri-tips, etc., etc.
Interesting.
It's a big meat. So the Hitching Post,
Oh, okay. Got the country western thing going. Got it.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I was
Um,
thinking, what is Danish? I always think of Danish. I don't
yeah,
think
we
of
didn't we didn't
much
lean
any.
into that.
Okay, yeah. It's gluten
uh,
problems.
Sure. But it's good to be here. It's good to be back. We have a good morning. I'm excited for this conversation. We're going to be talking legacy in a moment. But yeah, good to check in. Good to have you guys here online. We actually threw out a poll on our Facebook group, our PCC online Facebook group, trying to find the right time. Again, Mark and I are pretty flexible, finding the right sweet spot to get a lot of people logged in, because a lot of this in real time, if we get some good communication, good questions, it really kind of helps drive this conversation to, I think, really where it really needs to go. So please chime in even through the chat today, or let us know this week what a sweet spot would be for a time that would work.
Yeah, maybe like 11 p.m. That would be a whole new angle, or 4
P-
a.m. and get then it'd be real.
PCC after hours, PCC in the dark.
There you go. Yeah, swing
That's
shift.
uh-huh. That's look, we're open to all suggestions. There's no there are bad
But there
ideas.
has to be a majority.
There has to be a majority. Um, all right, couple quick updates. Should I get some updates? Let's jump into the
Sure,
conversation.
let's do some
Uh,
updates.
as I mentioned, Grow Group. So we're excited. I mean, we've been talking a lot. It's been really heavy on my heart this last season, just that we need to grow. We need community. We need people. I read an article yesterday in the Atlantic about like why people are leaving the church. Like, why is the church not as relevant as it used to be? Not to go off on this topic, but community is a big part of that conversation of people really feeling grounded into something. And when you don't feel that grounding or feel into that community, it's much easier to not show up and to
Mm.
kind of start disconnecting. So, not because the article, but just it resonated in my heart that, man, we need people for all the reasons. But yeah, so Grow Group, PCC online Grow Group, Wednesdays, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We're walking through John. We had a great meeting last week. Never too late to join that. You can jump in anytime. We meet for about 60 to 75 minutes, so not a huge pull. If you're on the West Coast, you get done right before dinner, which is nice and easy. East Coast, I don't know, post dinner. It's perfect.
Cool. This may be off topic, but what do you
Sure.
think? Do you think we need a jingle? So when we come on live, you got
Something.
some music going, just saying, you can only do this so much.
I
Uh,
mean, and maybe not at all. If it depends on how you're feeling. Well, as the music man in this group, I would lean on your suggestions.
well, we could work that out. Well, we may
Yeah,
surprise everybody. It may start with just holding a boombox
sure.
but we could get more sophisticated later. Anyway.
Shelby is still the gatekeeper of all this, right? Like this isn't just
She
you and
is
I. Okay,
watching. She's in the shadows.
she's in the
Uh,
shadows, guiding,
she is watching
protecting,
right now. In fact,
protecting. I think.
give us a hi, Shelby, from the chat. You know how to do it. It'll come in here quick.
Hey guys.
Oh wow, she just
Aw,
jumped in.
our gatekeeper.
All right.
Good to see you.
See?
All right, second announcement. Marriage group. We wanted an online marriage group. We have a lot of people that have some interest in that. We were planning on starting tonight, but to really have some depth and value, we need community. We want to get some more critical mass. So we're actually going to push our start date 2 weeks. And the good news of that is it gives you time to sign up and say yes. So it's a 7-week group. It's going to be video based. It's meant for couples to kind of do together, no matter where you might be on that marriage track. Day 1 to year 73 of marriage, whatever it looks like for you. But we're really excited for that. I think it's going to be really powerful. I previewed the series, so really exciting. But if you're interested in that at all, email me, Amin at pccsc.org for anything, or let us know through our PCC online Facebook group. Good, Mark?
Also, yeah. And we realized that, to throw this out effectively in the middle of summer could be a scheduled challenge, but that's the beauty of online, to where no matter where you are, this thing is 90 minutes each session.
Yeah, max. Yeah,
Even if you're in a hotel room or you're in a campsite or whatever, and you can get some internet, you can join in. And so we've done that before with grow groups, that people are in campsites and stuff, and it can even be fun. So don't hesitate.
And the majority of time, just to let people know, it's really you and your spouse chatting. You're not sharing all your dirty secrets with a bunch of strangers you don't know. It's really meant for you and your spouse. It helps you. It's like when your good friend comes in town and asks you and your wife a question, you're both like, oh, that's a good question. We should talk about that. That's what the series kind of does. It asks a lot of good questions, and it kind of helps you think about some things that you may not normally over dinner on a Tuesday night think about or talk about. So anyway.
And it could even make your vacation that much more interesting, because you're probably doing a lot of driving. Those Sprinter vans are big right now. So give you time later to talk it through. So jump on in.
All right, let's jump in. Speaking of jumping in.
All right. Well, the guy that we should be jumping in with isn't here. So Brandon preached on Sunday. And he couldn't make it today because he has multiple meetings. And so, but we figured we're going to talk about it. So can't defend himself, but that's okay. That's on him. So why don't you summarize it, though?
Is this a defend your sermon podcast? I'm kidding.
I think it can be. I think it's worthy of always challenging.
Yes.
What we say and putting it through lenses, the but lens, and can be helpful. So.
Well, great, encouraging message. It got me thinking a lot. It talked a lot about legacy. The question is, like, what is our legacy? So it kind of leaned into this idea of where we're all building a legacy. Legacy matters in our life, and kind of what is the purpose of our life? How are we taking the things that God has given us, and how are we moving them forward? And question 1 for him is, what we do to help build our legacy is that we value God's priorities over our own. So our lives, and especially most of us who live in this country, it's really easy to prioritize ourselves first and God second. One good way to kind of check that is the vast majority of things I do benefiting me, easy for me, fun, that is joy and fun and comfort and ease? Does that drive the majority of our decisions? How often do we counterbalance that to what might be God asked me to do right now? So the first thing we do is we check, how do we value God's priorities over our own? Because if we start valuing God's priorities, we do lead into this idea of legacy, and our lives are not our own. But
let me insert there. Brandon was comparing and contrasting Joshua 24 with Judges 2 in the generation of people. In Joshua 24, that generation was godly. They were following the Lord. And then you get the Judges 2, and they're all doing what is right in their own minds, and evil was flourishing. And where was the flyby? The flyby was the Joshua 24 generation didn't invest and live out the Shema, basically, in teaching their children instructing and discipling their children. And so they end up in this place that is a bunch of individuals doing what is right in their own mind. I would
Yeah.
argue, which is very much today, very
Yeah.
individualistic, very non-communal, very non-us, but me, my. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and what we'll push back into that in a moment because that there's a lot of meat on that bone. So that's the first thing. The second thing then is how do we be people that build a legacy? Is that we value God's family enough to add to it. We value God's family enough to add to it. And this was a conversation about discipleship and what does it look like to be pouring into others? How do we pour into this next generation? Because as we saw from the scripture that he shared, it can fall away very quickly. Like just like that, you go from a generation that's following God, a community that's following God, that's moving towards Him on mission with Him, to very quickly an apathetic, community that's disconnected from God and again doing what's right in their own eyes. And so, how we break against that is we value His priorities and we value God's family enough to add to it. And the question he kind of asked in that is just a reminder that someone loved you enough to share with you who Jesus is. Like
Mm,
somebody in your life at some point loved you enough, and you do the line from that all the way to the disciples and Jesus loving them enough to tell them about who He is, and that's how this multiplies. So, what does that look like for our life?
mm.
So that's kind of the. I'm sure he would summarize it differently, but from my heart and how I heard it, those are the things that really weighed on me that really impacted me.
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
so let's get
Thanks
into
for
it.
doing. Um, Discipleship and investing in legacy, and I was thinking about that before we came on, and I thought um, there is a shift that I think took place for my generation as a parent.
Hmm.
Um, when I was growing up, and Lincoln was president. No, I'm just kidding, but it was a long time ago. So when I was growing up, I would go to the and this is just a general discussion. Forget the spiritual piece for a second. Just the idea of someone investing into another person that isn't their kid was normal when I was
Hmm.
growing up. I would go to the park, spend all day there, see my friends there. There would be coaches that I
Hmm.
knew. Mike Krebda, I know his name to this day. We stay in touch to this day because of his investment in my life. We would sit and shoot baskets. He would train. He would encourage. We'd go back. We would talk. I'd play on his teams. He would check in with me if I'm sick, whatever. Now today's sports world, it's parents coaching the teams of their kids, and when their kids are gone, the parents are gone. So
Hmm.
that tier of coaching, mentoring is arguably disappeared today. Um, and so when we say invest in the next generation, well,
Hmm.
that would have been an
Hmm.
easy message 40 years ago,
Hmm.
because you're just now saying, oh, spiritually, we should probably do something for them too, not just for basketball.
Yeah.
But today, I don't see that even as a value beyond parent and their kids. Um, and so it can be very nepotistic. I'm there for my kid, which is cool. I got it. But when my kid's gone, I'm gone. Okay, well, what about the kid that doesn't have a parent there, that's void, or you don't, as a parent, have enough time to follow up with that kid and your kids? And so um, everybody's doing what is right in their own mind today.
Yeah.
And I think that piece, and that's not even talking about social media and how everybody need a mentor. Why do I need to mentor? I got iChat ADT or whatever. I've got, social media. I've got AI. Um, it is a lost, I won't say art, but a lost value. Um,
Well, there's two things that I want to press on. So remember, don't forget your thought that you just had. Do you have it? I
no,
just interrupted you.
it's okay.
It's
I
gone.
don't. It'll
It's
come.
in
No,
the ether
it's
forever.
just a thought. It comes back.
One is you drew this distinction between someone, a kid being coached, mentored, seen by someone that is not their parent. Why did you lean on that distinction?
No, because I'm saying, where's the coach that stays there for each class.
Yeah.
Of the basketball coach, Mike Krevda. We knew him as Krev. To this day, I went to the memorial of his daughter who had passed away, and thanks for coming, Krev. You know, your bro, Krev. That guy coached me through 3 years, but he coached people 3 years before me. He coached people 5 years after me. He was there, almost like a school teacher, right? School teachers, I would argue, are still that layer where they go class after class after class, and they're not there for their kid or
Yeah.
whatever. But how much can a school teacher even invest in a child, you know, or do they invest? Some do, some are great. So I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I was just thinking, wow, in general, culturally, that piece seems to be missing.
I heard a stat that came out. This was back when I was really heavily involved with youth ministry, and the statistic was that the number of kids that have a significant conversation with an adult that isn't their parent is minimal. Like there
Mm,
may be one or two, and just the repercussions of that. And it's
mm,
going into what you're saying, that
mhm,
when I was growing up, Tim Ainley, my baseball coach, I mean, knew me, saw me, invested in me. I didn't fully
mhm,
understand at the time, but it's true. And it was really for us, we really resonated with that, and it really encouraged us to lean in with our students in our high school and middle school ministries. It really encouraged us to bring more people along, because students need people other than their parents, adults, not just other students, adults in their life that they can
mm,
look up to, that they can see, that they know care about them, know them, see them. And so when you made that distinction, it really spoke to my heart, because I remember how important that was for me growing up, and I also have been lucky to see some of the ripples of, the 8 years I spent working with our high school and middle school ministries.
which is kind of
As
an
just
interesting thought, because then is this a parenting thing? That if you're there every moment for your kid, which has been presented as that's what you should do, are you preventing from those relationships even being built?
Yes,
Um,
I don't know. I'm not a parent. It's a good question.
yeah.
It is that it is like all things, that balance of how do you have that kind of healthy relationship with your student, because or child, because you will be there for the long haul, but how do you have space, and how do you set your child up to be in scenarios where they are around other adults, right? Like are we moving them towards those places? And obviously the church is one. Like do they feel like they're part of this community, and do they feel like, but again, I mean, it's so interesting that the number, I mean, you can see if you walk around the campus, if you walk around the school, every number of kids will actually look in the eyes and say hello.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just such a distinction.
Well, the phone has replaced it for sure. And, we still have in our town Boys and Girls Club, which is interesting,
Mm,
but the park systems have all shut down for that. That was a whole tax cut. I remember when that happened. And that used to be big. That was a big community place. So now you have club sports. So now it's more about winning and finances than it is doing life. So anyway, but whatever. So yeah, when Brandon threw out, how many people are you investing in and
mhm.
discipling? And of course, it's going to be crickets, because culturally, it's not a value.
Well, and I think there's two pieces to that as well, right? For me to, we can be hearing this on we should be hearing this on two different wavelengths, right? And a mentor of mine used to say this phrase a lot and would challenge us as young pastors. He'd say there should be two questions that you should be able to answer in your life on a regular basis. And obviously there's minor seasons here and there, but on a regular basis, you should be able to answer: who's discipling me, and who am I discipling? Who is above and who is below? Not in a hierarchical, but who am I looking up towards? Who am I helping pulling up towards me? It was always very convicting for us, because it really made you pay attention to the people around you, because sometimes you're like, oh, there are people, but I didn't recognize that. Oh, I need to be more intentional with this relationship, whether it's somebody I'm looking up to, or but that it does feel, as I've gone through and I'm a young buck, but I've been in this game a long time. I have seen, when I first started working at a church, I mean, we would have sign up for mentoring, discipleship. Like it was a big priority. Everyone would sign up. That we would go through these seasons in church where like people are in these mentoring groups, and I can't, in the last 10 years, I can't remember that conversation in any real impactful way, even within the church, cycle.
Well, and I think you're a little different. Not not in a different way, but I think because ever since I've known you, Almond, you are, when we would meet and stuff, I'd say, "What do you want to talk about today?" And you'd say, "I just want to know what I don't know."
Hmm.
And I remember that. And so that's a real investigative, seeking thing. I think part of the problem with this discipleship discussion is what value do I get out of it? If
Mm,
if I want to learn how to play pickleball, let's use a very hot topic, and you're a good player, then I'm going to want to get together with you and I'm going to want you to show me stuff. And I'm going to want, you don't need to convince me about discipleship. I'm going to track you down and say, can we go out and play again? Because I see a value.
hmm.
And I think that's probably the part that's maybe missing with, well, who are you discipling and what are you discipling? Well, for what? What's the
Hmm.
value? Why should I do this? Is it a should? And you know how shoulds never work.
Hmm.
They work for a while, but so what is the value of that? That's what's missing. Because what is the value of a librarian today? What is the value of a travel agent today? What is the value of a bank teller today?
Hmm.
What all this stuff you can do online. All this
Hmm.
stuff, it's like they're all doing what is right in their own minds. So I don't want to be the naysayer here, but I think it's easy to say we should, and then we walk away and we don't because culture doesn't value it, versus really getting our arms around what value can I bring to somebody's life. If I'm not just discipleship, but what? Oh, I think I can help that kid. If I play guitar and I play better than him, then he'll want to meet with me. I can bring a value. He can read the same Bible you're reading.
Hmm.
So what value? So probably not a value. It's not a Bible verse. It's going to be an experience. It's, hey, let me talk to you. I'd like to meet with you, see how you're doing in your marriage. I've been married 45 years. Or I know you got a kid coming up. Hey, let's meet. I'd like to, share with you some encouragement that I've got. And, you're going into this and I remember what it's like. Can we meet? It's topical driven.
Hmm.
Um, it's relevant to their life. Then I think you come out of it going, okay, that was a good meeting on both sides. I got value. I gave value.
Yeah.
I don't know, just a suggestion there.
But it feels like what you're pushing on is this, and you've mentioned before, like it's everything's accessible online. We can do things isolated. We can do things individual. We can do things disconnected, right? Like I can on my lunch break, I can quickly read this or do this, and it again, it speaks to this disconnectedness of, in my lens, disconnectedness of community, of being in and around people on a regular basis. And that's what it feels like you're kind of pushing up against is I don't find value in this because how can I find value? Because if I'm going to do this now, I'm going to schedule it. I have to show up. There's a whole thing that happens now suddenly, and that is effort and that is energy. And I'm not willing to make effort or energy unless I understand step one, two, three. I understand how it's all going to look. Now I will consider making that next step.
Hmm. And the value usually kicks in when there's a blowout. Then that could be a value, right? So and so, caught on doing porn, and so now he needs this or she needs to meet with somebody to create, because it's pushed
Yeah,
by a problem.
external force.
Right, right. And to keep something together or whatever. But so I know for me to really apply this message, I would have to think about a value I could bring to somebody or they could bring to me that would motivate me to ask or to offer. Um,
Well,
that's
let
all.
me let me say this. So I think so. Yeah, this is how do we get practical? How do we apply this now? Okay,
Yep.
we're a part of this community. Let's say you're part of PCC San Clemente. You show up week to week. To me, I think there are a couple ways potentially that we can seek to begin applying this. One is I think here's how it's worked in my life. Let me just go back to that easiest way. presence, availability, presence and availability. Got to show up, got to be present in and around people's life. And then you got to have an air availability. I know people that are the people in my life that I've leaned towards, that I moved towards. It's because they had this sense of availability. Like they were around, I got to know them, I got to get a feel for who they were, and they had this. They weren't. They didn't get off. I didn't get the sense that, oh man, I'm going to inconvenience them if I ask them to grab a cup of coffee with me or to grab a beer after work. And there's a lot of people I do feel that, oh, I'm going to inconvenience this person if I try to lean in at all, or just I just want to grab a cup of coffee with you, but it seems like a big priority. So to me, one of the barriers can be, are we people that are present, that we show up, because if you show up, you start getting known, and that's how you start building those relationships. And are you available?
Okay, so let me insert
go?
there. No, I'm not available to that level. I don't have bandwidth. When I get home, the kids are running everywhere, and I've had a long day, and I still got work to do tonight before I go to bed, but I got to spend time with the kids and put them down, and let alone even talk to my wife. So to peel off for an hour to talk to some dude that isn't on the epicenter of my life, called work, family, no, I don't. So now what's the answer? Well, don't be as busy. Or, I'm going to throw it in, use tools. Zoom.
Yep.
You don't need to go for an hour. You can Zoom for 15 minutes. You can do it in between somebody reading books to your children and you coming in and kissing them goodnight. You could, and the reason I say this is I just went through a thing that I thought, wow, this is really antiquated. So as you guys know, my wife had a little bit of an accident and she tore a hamstring, and we were out of state. And it took getting back here, driving down the street, going into an orthopedics doctor's office, 10 minutes of discussion, a quick look to get a prognosis. It's like, how 1950s can you get? If we could have Zoomed, and to realize that what we've been doing the last 4 to 5 days is wrong.
Yeah.
To know that we could have just Zoomed, had a discussion, held the phone up, see what it looks like. Okay, here's what you need to be doing. Oh my gosh. But it took getting together physically, getting on an airplane. It's just like, that stuff has got to change to be effective.
Yes. So, I love that. I think it's the mindset of let's think outside the box, let's get creative. But it has to still come from a place of desiring or recognizing that, hey, my life isn't my own. Yes, I have a priority. Family is priority, of course. Wife, home, work, responsibilities. But if that is where our life stays in this very myopic place, then we kind of become people that are very insulated and very isolated.
Yes.
That it's somebody used to refer to it as like, oh, that's a fortress family. That's a fortress. I go, it's a fortress family. Like, oh, they're great. They're awesome. You'll see them on a Sunday, but you can't get in. They get them. They put the walls up. They do what they do. They go to soccer. They do this. That's a fortress family. And you're not going to get them to step out and volunteer. You're not going to get them to help out with that one event. You're not going to, it is very, very insular. And again, not being a parent, I can't speak to that. But it was a real defining kind of label of like, okay, I recognize that when I see it. And if you want to stay in that place, you can. But what the message was talking about and what it kind of pushes us towards is, are we people that are interruptible and available? And I'm not going to go into a sermon about Jesus being interruptible and available, but we see it again and again through the Gospels, that willing to go off of our scheduled course because we recognize there's something else out here and there's somebody that might be reaching out.
Okay, so you've asked the question, and let's try to answer it. Are we people that are interruptible and available? Answer, no. Okay, so now how do we do that?
How do we become people that are available and interruptible?
Yep.
I think it has to.
How does a fortress family unfortify? how does, because I think we're talking about two populations, right? When we're talking about legacy, you're leaving a legacy with your children for
Hmm.
sure.
Hmm.
That's generational, and leaving a legacy with people outside your family. So what you're
Hmm.
saying is the Fortress family, they got the legacy thing handled in that environment. How do they draw down the guard gate and go over the moat and into, um, how do they
Yes.
leave the Amish community, basically?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or what's a step that can be taken? I think Brandon hit on a couple. You can
Yes.
volunteer in children's ministry or those kinds of things. It at least gives you an option to do
Hmm.
something. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I think I mean those are the steps. It's especially when there's such obvious need. I think that's such a missing piece is recognizing like I got involved in youth ministry not because man I woke up and I was a I was a senior in college. I'm like, you know what I want to do right now is work with middle schoolers. It was because somebody came up and goes, we have a desperate need. Like we have so many kids and they need people to pay attention to them. And I was like, okay, and that literally began my career pastoral ministry. That
Hmm.
God used that to ping, and it's a long story, but all these things. And it was because I just said yes. And I shift my priorities at my senior year of college to say, I'm going to, instead of doing this on Wednesday nights, I'm going to do this for 90 minutes on Wednesday nights and literally
Hmm.
changed my life because it
What
got
was
me,
what was his name?
Pastor Brad.
See, so I guess because we're out of time, but I guess the reality is who is using in our audience, who is using your name
Yeah.
to speak about your impact on them. And there are people, maybe it's your son, maybe it's your daughter,
Yeah.
maybe it's whatever, a cousin, maybe it's an in law, maybe it's a family member. Um, but could it be that God wants you to go one step further outside the fortress, outside the
Well,
nepotism,
yeah.
and into a broader reach? Because I
Well,
got that same guy. You got Pastor Brad, I got Mike Krebda, and everybody's got one of those people, and that's the beauty of it.
Well, and the reality is we are building a legacy. Whether we like it or not, whether we're paying attention or not, we are building a legacy. Our life is saying something about us to the people around us, to the outside world. And the question is, are we paying attention to that? And what is flowing out of our lives, whether it's from in our homes to outside our homes? We are building it. And it may be a great legacy, and people may have, people can see it, but it may not be. But people are noticing, people are paying attention to our legacy, and to me, that is not a thought we're going to dive into now, but that is real.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, what does our life look like? And it's easy to lose perspective when we're in the day to day grind. But like this week, you left a legacy.
Yep. This is
All
this is
right.
this is where the music starts coming in.
Uh-huh. This is what
It starts
Shelby will
getting
play us off.
louder and louder and louder. Okay, we gotta go. We gotta go. Kind of thing.
Your
Or,
life matters. All right, your life matters. Ways to plug in again, ways to be available, to be present, to show up and be known and know other people. Online grow group Wednesdays 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Never too late to join. Email me Ahmed at pccsc.org. 2 weeks from now, August 15th, we want to launch our marriage group, and to do that, we need critical mass. We want people to pour into one another, but to help pour into each other in ways as well. And so, if you're interested in that, mid-August, that'll be great. And if you, well, one more announcement, Mark. Baptisms, beach days for the PCC crew
um, sure.
happening
You already
this
said it.
Sunday. All right, this Sunday, if you are in and around San Clemente and have not been baptized, come to church.
No,
Let us know.
no.
Is that not the announcement? I messed up the announcement.
All right. You know what?
I went
Forget
over my
it.
skis.
Yeah, you did. Well, Shelby threw us off. We gave her too much power, and
Oh,
now she's throwing it in. But all that to say, no, baptisms are coming up on Sunday morning.
great.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
All right. Good news, good information. Thank you all. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.